Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Good to see everybody here. We have a new face in the us, Diana, right?
Diane.
Diane. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
So we're going to, this morning, we're going to read, we're going to try to get through 4 chapters in Genesis. It's all kind of one story of Joseph's brothers going down to Egypt a couple of times and him finally revealing himself to them. And so it's that whole story. So we'll try to get through the whole thing. It's 4 chapters long. Let's pray. Thank you, Father, for bringing us together again for another week that we could read your word. Lord, we just pray that you give us a spirit of wisdom and revelation to know you, that we can see more of you in your word. We also pray and thank you for the opportunity later this morning to worship you and to worship your Son and to declare everything that he has done for us, to partake of your table and to declare his death and remember all the sacrifice that he made for us, that we might have life and forgiveness of sins. Lord, we just pray for all those who can't join, who are ill or who are going through various trials. We just pray that you be with them, that you comfort them and strengthen them and lead them through these difficulties. In Jesus' name, amen.
Mhm.
Okay, so we'll start with chapter 42, which says, Now Jacob saw that there was grain in Egypt. Jacob said to his sons, Why do you keep looking at one another? And he said, I have now heard that there is grain in Egypt. Go down there and buy grain for us from there, that we may live and not die. So Joseph's 10 brothers went down to buy grain from Egypt. But Jacob did not send Joseph's brother Benjamin with his brothers, for he said, Perhaps harm may befall him. And the sons of Israel came to buy grain among the others who came, for the famine in the land was in the land of Canaan. Now Joseph was the governor over the land. It was he who sold the grain to all the people of the land. And Joseph's brothers came and bowed down to him with their faces to the ground. Okay, so remember, we're going to go back and read chapter 37 briefly. Remember, Jacob was the dreamer. He had the dreams, and that didn't make any of his family happy, particularly his brothers, which is one of the reasons why they sold him. And he had a dream. And so back in chapter 37, it says, Joseph had a dream, and when he told it to his brothers, they hated him even more. And he said to them, Listen to this dream which I have had. There we were, binding sheaves in the field. Then suddenly my sheaf rose up and remained standing. Then your sheaves gathered around and bowed down to my sheaf. And his brothers said to him, Will you indeed reign over us and actually be a ruler among us? So they hated him even more for his dreams and for his words. And so here, that this dream is fulfilled. They are going down there. They're going down there to get grain so that they can survive. And they all bow down to him. And so in this, the dream that he has is indeed fulfilled. Okay, so back to 42. And Joseph saw his brothers and recognized them, but he disguised himself to them and spoke harshly with them and said to them, Where have you come from? And they said, From the land of Canaan, to buy grain for food. And Joseph recognized his brothers, but they did not recognize him. And Joseph remembered the dreams that he had dreamed among them, and he said to them, You are spies. You have come to see the nakedness of the land. And they said to him, No, my lord, rather your servants have come to buy grain for food. We are all sons of one man. We are honest men. Your servants have never been spies. And he said to them, No, you have come to see the nakedness of the land. And they said, We, your servants, are 12 brothers, the sons of one man in the land of Canaan. And at this moment, the youngest is with our father today, and one is no more. But Joseph said to them, This is just as I spoke to you. Go away from this place unless your youngest brother comes here. Send one of you to get your brother while you remain bound, that your word may be tested, whether there is truth in you. And if not, as Pharaoh lives, surely you are spies. And he put them all together in custody for 3 days. And Joseph said to them on the third day, do this and live, for I fear God. If you are honest men, let one of your brothers remain bound in your place of custody, and the rest of you go, carrying grain for the famine of your household. And bring your youngest brother to me, that your word may be verified, and you will not die. And they did so. And they said to one another, we are indeed guilty concerning our brother, because we saw the distress of his soul when he pleaded with us, yet we did not listen. Therefore, this distress has come to us. And Reuben said to them, saying, did I not speak to you, saying, do not sin against the child? But you would not listen. So now also his blood is required. And they did not know that Joseph understood, for there was an interpreter between them. And he turned away from them and wept. Then he returned to them and spoke to them. And he took Simeon from among them and bound him before their eyes. Then Joseph gave orders to fill their bags with grain, and to restore every man's silver pieces to his sack, and to give them provisions for the way. And thus was it done for them. And they loaded their grain upon their donkeys and departed from there. And one of them opened his sack to give his donkey fodder at the lodging place, and he saw his silver. There it was in the mouth of his sack. And he said to his brothers, my silver has been returned. Here it is in my sack. And their hearts stopped, and they turned trembling to one another, saying, what is this that God has done to us? And they came to Jacob, their father, in the land of Canaan, and told him all that had happened to them, saying, the man, the Lord of the land, spoke harshly to us and took us for spies on the land. But we said to him, we are honest men, we have never been spies. We are 12 brothers, sons of our father. The one is no more, and the youngest is with our father today in the land of Canaan. And the man, the Lord of the land, said to us, by this will I know that you are honest men. Leave one of your brothers with me, take grain for the famine of your households, and go. And bring your youngest brother to me, that I may know that you are not spies, but honest men. I will give you your brother, and you may trade in the land. And when they emptied their sacks, there was each man's bundle of silver in his sack, and they said, and when they and their fathers saw their bundles of silver, they were afraid. And Jacob, their father, said to them, you have bereaved me of my children. Joseph is no more, and Simeon is no more, and you would take Benjamin. All these things are against me. And Reuben spoke to his father, saying, you may put to death my 2 sons if I do not bring him to you. Put him in my hand, and I will return him to you. And he said, my son shall not go down with you, for his brother is dead, and he alone is left. And if harm should befall him on the way in which you go, then you shall bring down my gray hairs in sorrow to Sheol. Okay. Does anybody have any questions or comments, any observations? Okay. So, what did Joseph accuse his brothers of being?
Spies.
Spies. And how long did Joseph keep the brothers in jail?
3 days.
3 days. That's how long Jesus was in the grave, right? 3 days, 3 nights. And maybe, it doesn't say, but possibly that's how long Joseph was in the pit that they kept him in before they sold him. You know. And what did Joseph tell his brothers to do to prove that they were not spies?
Bring Benjamin to him.
Bring the youngest brother, Benjamin. What did Joseph do when he heard his brothers discussing what they had done to him when they sold him?
He went away and wept.
Yeah. He went away and wept. Which brother did Joseph make stay in prison while the others went back to get Benjamin?
Simeon.
Simeon. What did Reuben offer to allow Jacob to do if he didn't return Benjamin to him?
Kill his 2 sons.
2 sons.
Kill his 2 sons, yes. Okay, true or false? All of Jacob's sons went to Egypt to buy grain. False. True or false? Joseph's dream that his brothers would bow down to worship him was fulfilled.
True.
True. True. Joseph recognized his brothers, but they didn't recognize him. True. Joseph's brothers thought that the reason that they had come into distress in Egypt was because of what they had done, because of what they did to Joseph. That's true.
That's true.
What did Joseph do when he heard his brothers? Oh, I think that's a repeat. Sorry about that. True or false? Joseph's brothers were happy when they saw their silver had been given back to them.
That was false.
That's false. They were trembling and in fear.
They was distressed.
Yes, very distressed. And in the end, Jacob finally agreed to allow Benjamin to go to Egypt.
True.
Not in this chapter. It is eventually true, but not in this
It's not
chapter.
in the time.
It's false. At the end of this chapter, he said, no, you're not taking him because I'll go down to Sheol.
Eventually let him go.
He does. But in this chapter, chapter 42,
Right.
that's not true.
Sorry, I got the hang.
I think you've read ahead. Okay, so now we'll go to chapter 43, where the answer will be true. Okay, so now the famine was severe in the land, and when they had completely consumed the grain which they had brought out of Egypt, their father said to them, go back, buy us a little food. But Judah spoke to him, saying, the man Solomon warned us, saying, you shall not see my face unless your brother is with you. If you are willing to send our brother with us, we will go down and buy you grain for food. But if you are not willing to send him, we will not go down. For the man said to us, you shall not see my face unless your brother is with you. And Israel said, why did you treat me so badly as to tell the man that you had another brother? And they said, the man asked us very carefully about our relatives, saying, is your father still alive? Do you have another brother? So we told him about these things. Could we possibly know that he would say, bring your brother down? And Judah said to Israel, his father, send the boy with me, and we will rise up and go, that we may live and not die, we and you and our little ones. I myself will be surety for him. Of my hand you may require him. If I do not bring him to you and set him before you, then I shall bear the blame of sinning before you forever. For if we had not delayed, by now we could have returned twice. And their father Israel said to them, if it must be so, then do this. Take some of the choice fruits of the land in your bags, and carry a present down to the man, a little balm, a little honey, aromatic gum, and myrrh, pistachio nuts, and almonds. Take double the silver in your hand, and carry back in your hand the silver that was returned in the mouth of your sacks. Perhaps it was a mistake. Take your brother also, and rise up, return to the man. And may the all-sufficient God grant you mercy before the man, that he may release to your brothers and Benjamin. And as for me, if I am bereaved of my children, I shall be bereaved. So the men took this present, and they took double the silver in their hand in Benjamin. And they rose up, and they went down to Egypt, and stood there. It stood before Joseph. And when Joseph saw Benjamin with them, he said to him, who was over the house, bring the men into the house, and slaughter an animal, and prepare it, for the men will eat with me at noon. And the man did as Joseph said, and the man brought the men into Joseph's house. And the men were afraid because they were brought into Joseph's house. They said, it is because of the silver that was returned to our sacks the first time, that we are being brought in, that he may come out against us and fall upon us and take us as slaves with our donkeys. And they came near the man who was over Joseph's house, spoke to him at the door of the house, and said, "Please, my lord, we indeed came down the first time to buy grain for food." And when we came to the lodging place, we opened our sacks, and there was each man's silver in the mouth of his sack, our silver in full weight. So we have brought it back in our hand, and we have also brought down extra silver in our hand to buy grain for food. We do not know who put our silver in our sacks. And he said, "Be at peace, do not fear. Your God and the God of your father has given you treasure in your sacks. Your silver came to me." Then he brought Simeon out to them, and the man brought them into Joseph's house and gave them water, and they washed their feet, and he gave their donkeys fodder, and they prepared the present for Joseph's coming at noon, for they had heard that he would eat a meal there. And when Joseph came into the house, they brought him the present which they had in their hand into the house, and bowed down to the ground to him. And he asked them about their welfare, and said, "Is your father well? The old man of whom you spoke, is he still alive?" And they said, "Your servant, our father, is well. He is still alive." And they bowed down and paid him homage. Then Joseph so this is again, I repeated the Genesis chapter 37 again, because this is the second time that they're fulfilling that. I won't read it again, but this is just a reference that, again, they are bowing down to worship him, so his dream is coming true. So continuing in chapter 43. And he lifted up his eyes, and he saw his brother Benjamin, his mother's son, and said, "Is this your youngest brother, of whom you spoke to me?" And he said, "God be gracious to you, my son." And Joseph hurried, for his inward parts burned for his brother, and he sought a place to weep. So he entered into his chamber and went there, and wept there. And he washed his face and came out, and controlled himself, and said, "Serve the meal." And they served him by himself, and them by themselves, and the Egyptians who ate with him by themselves, because the Egyptians could not eat a meal with the Hebrews, for that is an abomination to the Egyptians. And they sat before him, the firstborn according to his birthright, and the youngest according to his youth. And the men looked at one another in astonishment. And he had portions brought to them before them. However, Benjamin's portion was 5 times as much as any of theirs. And they drank and were merry with him. Okay. So what did Jacob tell his sons to take with them when they went back to Egypt?
Choice fruits of the land, egg, carrots,
Yes.
honey, gum,
Yeah.
nut, almond.
Yeah. So he told them to take back the choice fruits of the land, which were
Silver,
balm, honey, aromatic gum, myrrh, pistachio nuts, and almonds, and also to take twice the silver and Benjamin. What did Joseph do when he saw that his brothers had returned with Benjamin?
He went away and wept.
Well, in verse 16, he initially told his men to slaughter an animal.
Oh, okay.
That was the first time it happened. Okay. What did the man, so there was the man over Joseph's house, and they went and they approached him and they told him about the silver, and what was his reaction to that? What did the man say? What's that?
Did God give the money back?
Yeah, he said that he had their silver and that God must have given them their money back, so they have treasure in their sack. So he denied that they had not paid. And what did Joseph's brothers do when he came into the house? This would be in verses 26 and 28.
Jacob's brothers
or did I say Jacob's? Oh, it should be Joseph's, I'm sorry. What did Joseph's brothers
Oh, it's
do?
supposed to be Joseph.
The what?
It's supposed to be Joseph and not Jacob.
Yeah, sorry about that. So what did the brothers do when Joseph came into the house?
That's where he wept.
They bowed down to the ground.
6.
They gave him the gifts that they had given him, the presents they brought for him, and they bowed down. So that's what they did. And what did Joseph do when he saw Benjamin? Joyce, now you're ready? We're ready with the, he wept. So, yeah, he wept when he saw Benjamin, in verse 30. And what did the Egyptians, why did the Egyptians eat separately from Joseph and from his brothers?
Because it was an abomination for them to eat with the Hebrew.
Yeah. And then how much more was given to Benjamin to eat than to his brothers?
5.
He was given 5 times as much. True or false? Judah ensured the safe return of Benjamin to Jacob. True. True or false? Joseph's brothers were excited about being brought into Joseph's house. No, they were afraid. True or false? Simeon had to stay in prison while the others ate lunch. False. He was brought out. True or false? Joseph sat his brothers at the table from the firstborn to the youngest. True. We'll go on to chapter 44. Okay. Chapter 44. This is Joseph. And he commanded him who was over his house, saying, fill all the men's sacks with food, as much as they can carry, and put each man's silver in the mouth of his sack, and put my cup, the silver cup, in the mouth of the sack of the youngest, with his silver for the grain. And he did so according to the word Joseph had spoken. And as soon as the morning was light, the men were sent away, they and their donkeys. When they had just gone out of the city and were not yet far off, Joseph said to him who was over his house, rise up, follow after the men, and when you overtake them, say to them, why have you paid evil for good? Is not this that from which my Lord drinks, and which he indeed uses for divining? You have done wrong in doing so. And he understood, and he overtook them, and spoke these words to them, and they said to him, why does my Lord speak such words as these? Far be it from your servants to do such a thing. See how we brought back to you from the land of Canaan the silver which you found in the mouth of our sacks, how then could we steal silver or gold out of your father's house, or out of your Lord's house? With whomever of your servants it is found, let him die, and we ourselves will become my Lord's slaves. And he said, now also let it be according to your words. He with whom it is found will be my slave, and the rest of you will be blameless. Then each man hurried and lowered his sack to the ground, and each man opened his sack. And he searched, beginning with the oldest and ending with the youngest, and the cup was found in Benjamin's sack. Then they tore their garments, and each man loaded his donkey, and they returned to the city. And Judah and his brothers came to Joseph's house, and he was still there, and they fell to the ground before him. And Joseph said to them, what deed is this that you have done? Do you not know that such a man as I can indeed divine? And Judah said, what can we say to my Lord? What can we speak? And how can we justify ourselves? God has found out the iniquity of your servants. Here we are, my Lord's slaves, both we and the one in whose hand the cup has been found. But he said, far be it from me to do, Here we are, my Lord's slaves, both we and the one in whose hand the cup has been found. And he said, far be it from me to do this, the man in whose hand the cup has been found, he will be my slave. But as for the rest of you, go in peace to your father." Then Judah came near to him and said, "Please, my lord, let your servant speak a word in my lord's ears. Let not your anger burn against your servant, for we are even as Pharaoh. For you are even as Pharaoh." My lord asked his servant, saying, "Do you have a father or a brother?" And we said to my lord, "We have an old father and a young child of his old age, and his brother is dead, and he alone is left of his mother, and his father loves him. And you said to your servants, 'Bring him down to me, that I may set my eyes on him.' And we said to my lord, 'The boy cannot leave his father. If he should leave his father would die.' And you said to your servants, 'Unless your youngest brother comes down with you, you shall see my face no more.' And when we went up to your servant, my father, we told him my lord's words, and our father said, 'Return, buy a little food.' But we said, 'We cannot go if our youngest brother is with us. We will go.' And your servant, my father, said to us, 'You know that my wife bore me 2 sons, and the one went away from me, and I said, Surely he has been torn to pieces, and I have not seen him to this day. And if you take this one from me, and harm befalls him, you will bring down my gray hairs in misery to Sheol. Now therefore, when I come to your servant, my father, and the boy is not with us, then his life will be bound up in the boy's life. When he sees that the boy is not with us, he will die, and your servants will bring down the gray hairs of your servant, our father, in sorrow to Sheol. And your servant became surety for the lad to my father, saying, 'If I do not bring him to you, I will surely bear the blame of sinning before my father forever. Now therefore, please let your servant remain as a slave to my lord instead of the boy, and let the boy go up with his brothers. For how shall I go to my father if the boy is not with me? I fear to see the evil that would come on my father.'" Okay, so what did Jacob command the man over his house to do?
Told him to put the silver cup in his Benjamin's bag.
Yeah. Told him to put his silver cup into Benjamin's bag. In what order were the brothers' sacks searched?
Oldest to the youngest.
From the oldest to the youngest. And what did Joseph's brothers do when they returned to his house?
They bowed down to him.
They bowed down to him again. What was Joseph going to do to Benjamin for stealing his cup?
Make him a slave.
Gonna kill him. Said he was gonna kill him.
Verses 16 and 17,
16 and 17.
he made him his slave. Which brother offered to be Joseph's slaves in place of Benjamin? Judah. Okay. So this is 45 is the big finale. We've been building up to this for 3 chapters now, so we're finally going to get to the next one. Okay, so in chapter 45, then Joseph could not control himself before all his brothers who attended him, and he cried out, "Have everyone go out from me." So there was no one standing with him when Joseph made himself known to his brothers. And he wept so loudly that the Egyptians heard it, and the household of Pharaoh heard it. And Joseph said to his brothers, "I am Joseph. Is my father still alive?" But his brothers could not answer him, so troubled were they at his presence. And Joseph said to his brothers, "Please, come closer to me." And they came closer. And he said, I am your brother Joseph, whom you sold into Egypt. And now do not be grieved or angry with yourselves because you sold me here. For God sent me before you to preserve life. For the famine has been in the midst of the land these 2 years, and there are still 5 years in which there will be neither plowing nor harvest. And God sent me before you to preserve for you a remnant in the earth, and to keep you alive by a great deliverance. So now it was not you who sent me here, but God. And he made me father to Pharaoh, and lord over all his house, and ruler over all the land of Egypt. Hurry and go up to my father, and say to him, Thus says your son Joseph, God has made thee lord over all Egypt. Come down to me, do not delay, and you shall dwell in the land of Goshen, and be near to me, you and your children, and your children's children, and your flocks, and your herds, and all that you have. And there I will sustain you, for there are still 5 years of famine to come, so that you and your households and all that you have do not become impoverished. And now your eyes see, and the eyes of my brother Benjamin see, that it is my own mouth that speaks to you. And you must tell my father of all the glory in Egypt and of all you have seen, and you must hurry and bring my father down here. Okay. And so to reiterate this, he's telling them that they should not feel guilty about this, that it was actually God who made this arrangement, who sent him there. And that's reiterated in Psalm 105. It says, And he, Jehovah, called a famine upon the land. He broke the whole staff of bread. He sent a man before them, Joseph, who was sold as a slave. They afflicted his feet with fetters. He himself was placed in irons until the time when his word came to pass. The word of Jehovah tried him. The king sent men and freed him, even the ruler of the peoples, and let him go. And he made him lord over his house and ruler over all his possessions, to imprison his princes at will, and to teach his elders wisdom. And so this is just to reinforce the point that it was God who did this, and it wasn't his brothers. Okay, so back to chapter 45. And he fell upon his brother Benjamin's neck and wept, and Benjamin wept upon his neck, and kissed all his brothers and wept upon them. And after his brothers talked with him. And when the report was heard in Pharaoh's house, saying, Joseph's brothers have come, it was pleasing to Pharaoh and his servants. And Pharaoh said to Joseph, Say to your brothers, do this, load your beasts and depart and go to the land of Canaan, and take your father and your household, and come to me, and I will give you the best of the land of Egypt, and you will eat the fat of the land, and you are commanded to do this. Take wagons out of the land of Egypt for your little ones and for your wives, and bring your father and come. And do not be concerned for your possessions, for the best of the land of Egypt is yours. And the sons of Israel did so. And Joseph gave them wagons according to the command of Pharaoh, and gave them provisions for the way. To each of them he gave changes of garments, but to Benjamin he gave 300 pieces of silver and 5 changes of garments. And he sent to his father the following: 10 donkeys loaded with the best of Egypt, and 10 female donkeys loaded with grain, and bread, and provisions for his father on the way. So he sent his brothers away, and as they departed, he said to them, Do not quarrel on the way. So they went out of Egypt, and came to the land of Canaan, to Jacob their father, and they told him, saying, Joseph is still alive, and he is ruler over all the land of Egypt. And his heart grew numb, for he did not believe them. And they told him all the words of Joseph, which he had said to them. And when he saw the wagons which Joseph had sent to carry him, the spirit of Jacob, their father, was revived. And Israel said, It is enough. Joseph, my son, is still alive. I will go and see him before I die. Okay. So remember when we first started reading about Joseph, I said that there's a lot of parallels between Joseph and Christ. He's kind of a type of Christ. And so one of the things is, when his brothers came to him, did they recognize him the first time that he appeared to them? Did he reveal himself? And then he revealed himself on the second time, right? That he came to them. Well, this is like Israel and Jesus. The first time that Jesus came, they didn't recognize him. They rejected him, right? They said, "You're not the Messiah." In fact, they crucified him and put him to death. But when he comes back the second time, he's going to reveal himself to them, and they're going to realize that Jesus is in fact the Messiah. He is the Christ, and that they have crucified him. So there's some verses here that kind of show that. So I'll read those. First of all, about there's an account in Acts that Stephen gives right before he's stoned, and he talks about this and how Joseph revealed himself to his brothers the second time. It says, "And the patriarchs became jealous of Joseph and sold him into Egypt, yet God was with him and rescued him out of all his afflictions and granted him favor and wisdom before Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and he appointed him governor over Egypt and over all his house. And a famine came over all Egypt and Canaan, as well as great affliction, and our fathers could find no sustenance. But when Jacob heard that there was grain in Egypt, he sent our fathers out the first time, and during the second time, Jacob was made known to his brothers, and Joseph's race became manifest to Pharaoh." Okay. So in Romans chapter 11, talking about Israel and how they have been hardened so they don't believe, that they don't recognize Jesus as the Messiah. It says this, "For I do not want you, brothers, to be ignorant of this mystery, lest you become wise in yourselves, that the hardness that hardness has come upon Israel in part until the fullness of the Gentiles comes in." So this hardness, this blindness that they have, is only for a time. It is only until the fullness of the Gentiles come in. And then in Zechariah 12, it says, "I will pour out my spirit on the house of David and on the inhabitants of Jerusalem, the spirit of grace and of supplication. And they will look upon me, whom they have pierced, and they will wail over him with wailing, as for an only son, and cry bitterly over him with bitter crying, as for a firstborn son." So this is in relation to his second coming, that Israel will see, that they will see Jesus coming back, and they will realize that he is the Messiah. He is the Son of God. Anybody have any questions or comments? Okay. So, how many years of famine were left when Joseph revealed himself to his brothers? 5. What did God send? Why did God send Joseph to Egypt?
Preserve the remnant of Israel.
Yeah, and for a great deliverance. Yes. What did God make Joseph, according to verse 8?
I think he meant to leave Egypt, so he had that opportunity.
Yeah. It says that God made Joseph a father to Pharaoh, lord over all his house, and ruler over all the land of Egypt. Where did Joseph say his family would dwell?
The land of Goshen.
Goshen. And what did Pharaoh command Joseph to do regarding his family?
He sent wagons and stuff to bring his family up there and give them fine land.
Yes. He told him that he gave him wagons and supplies and things, and told him to go bring his family, his father and his whole family down there. What did Joseph give Benjamin?
5 times silver.
Yeah, he gave him 300 pieces of silver and 5 changes of garments.
That's right.
And what did Joseph send to his father? That's in verse 23.
Verse 23.
10 donkeys loaded with the best of Egypt, and 10 female
10
donkeys loaded with grain,
Loaded with the best of Egypt and 10 female donkeys. Loaded with grain and bread.
So he sent 10 donkeys, I assume male donkeys, with the best of Egypt, and then 10 female donkeys with grain, bread, and provisions for his father for the way. So basically, Pharaoh bankrolled the entire moving of Joseph's family. He sent all the wagons and gave them all provisions and then made it so that they could all come. What happened to Jacob when he learned that Joseph was alive? In verse 27.
He revived himself.
Yes. His spirit was revived. Okay. True or false? Joseph revealed his identity to his brothers in the presence of the Egyptians.
False.
False. He sent them all away.
He sent them out.
Yeah, he sent them out. True or false? Joseph wept so loudly that the Egyptians heard him.
True.
True. True or false? Jacob was angry with his brothers for selling him into slavery.
Well,
Joseph.
He was not angry with them. He realized that God was the one who did it. True or false? Pharaoh did not want Joseph's family coming to Egypt.
False.
False. He was the one who said, bring them down. Okay, anybody have any other questions or comments or anything?